Everybody out to the Regional Growth Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, August 15th, 2024. The time is 9:19. We will have introductions here in a second, but first I'd like to recognize we have a new member to the Regional Growth Committee and ask that Brad D., if you'll take just a second and maybe talk a little bit about your experience and your background on this.
Thank you. Those of you that have long memories may have remembered at some time, Andrew has that memory, that some time ago I served on the Wasatch Front Regional Council and enjoyed my stay there. Had the opportunity to serve as mayor of Washington Terrace City for about 10 years. And then from there, I moved straight to the legislature where I served another 17 years in the legislature, the last few as the majority leader of the House of Representatives. I enjoyed my stay here and since have done other things, a mission, and obviously moved around a couple of times, but now I'm back on the Transcom committee and I plan to be a representative here. So thank you very much. I have some knowledge, but learning more. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Brad. We appreciate that. And I think you provide a lot of great input in terms of your experience. So we welcome that. Thank you. We'd like to do introductions. If you don't mind, I'd like to start on the right-hand side and move around, and then we'll ask Andrea if she would go ahead and identify those who are online. So let's begin.
Rosie Hernandez, WFRC.
Susie Swim, WFRC.
Lane Thackrell, Morgan County Commissioner.
Lauren Palmer, Mayor in Harriman.
Brandon Stanger, Clinton Mayor.
Beth Holbrook, Utah Transit Authority.
Tammy Tran, Kaysville City Mayor.
Andrea Pearson, WFRC.
I'm Andrew Gruber, Executive Director here at Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Bob Dandoy, Royce City.
Ted Knowlton, WFRC Deputy Director. I am the coordinator on the staff for Regional Growth Committee.
Carolyn Lundberg, Mayor of Linden City.
Robert May, Mill Creek.
Sylvia Catton, Mill Creek City.
Ginger Chin, Salt Lake Chamber.
Ben Hewitt, UDOT.
Jory, we'll start with you.
Tory Johnner, Long Range Plan Group, WFRC.
Zachary Smallwood with Murray City.
Brad McElrath here with Clearfield City.
Byron Head, WFRC staff.
Meg Townsend, WFRC staff.
Hugh Van Wagen, WFRC staff.
Marsha White, WFRC staff.
Tim Watkins, WFRC staff.
Lauren Victor, WFRC staff. Miranda Jones Cox, WFRC.
Seamus Gueda, WFRC.
Dallin Barman, WFRC intern.
Christine Richmond, GSBS Consulting.
Erica Shimoleski, GSBS Consulting.
Ben Withbridge, WFRC staff.
Kurt Granberg, the Analytics Group at WFRC.
Lance Evans, South Weber City.
Matt Ryan, WFRC staff.
Madison Aviles, WFRC.
Marion Florence, Finance at WFRC.
Melinda Greenwood, Kaysville City.
Okay. Andrea, if you can identify those who are actually online, thank you.
Certainly online today we have Ryan Beck, Mark Shepard, Tiffany Pocock, Kendall Thomas, Mayor Fippen, Eric Barney, Kevin Van Tassel, Jordan Chandler, Byron Head, Kevin Cromar, Mike Newton, Julie Bjornstead.
And Mayor Ramsey from South Jordan is also on, and we are working to get her promoted to be a panelist.
Well, again, welcome. We appreciate you joining us today, and we certainly have a lot to cover. So please think about those things, ask some questions. Let's get engaged on some really important things that's talking about dealing with our future. I do have some meeting minutes from the May 16th Regional Growth Committee. Are there any proposed changes or adjustments to those minutes before I ask for motion to approve? Okay, hearing none then, do I have a motion to approve the Regional Growth Committee meeting minutes for May 16th, 2024? Don't be shy.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor of approving those minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. Thank you. This is the public comment period. Note this is a general public comment period. In addition to item number 3, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, we will open up for public comment relating to the Regional Transportation Plan amendments. So with that, if you have any public comments, please step up to the mic. Just give us your name and the organization you represent. Anybody online would like to share public comment? See
No, there did
hands?
not seem to be anybody online looking to comment.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move past the public comment period. Before we turn the rest of our agenda, I want to highlight the significant opportunities of the AMPO conference. Now, I will tell you, I'm not so sure I've ever heard that before, but the AMPO is the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, and they're having their national conference here in Salt Lake City in part because they recognize the outstanding work of the Wasatch Front Regional Council, and in part because we live in such a beautiful place. Andrew is going to take a few moments and comment about this national conference. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be very brief about this. We are really excited that one of our national associations has selected our region to be the host of their national conference this year. Hundreds of our peers coming from all over the country. And Mayor, I would really like to think that the reason they're coming here is to recognize the great work that we all do together. I think maybe that's part of it, but it probably also has something to do, as you noted, with the fact that we live in this beautiful place in the mountains, and we've encouraged the folks coming to town to take vacations on the front end or the back end as well. But we always try to share with our peers around the country the best practices that we utilize and then learn from our peers around the country. We know that we collectively do a wonderful job in Utah. We earn many accolades collectively for Utah, but we also know that we have a lot to learn from our peers in other places. So we look forward to that. And that's in September. We'll share more information with you all about it if you're interested in participating in any portion.
Any questions on that particular conference for Andrew?
We have the dates.
That would help. September 24th through 27th. September 24th through 27th. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Number 3 item on the agenda is the Wasatch Choice Vision update, identifying additional aspirations. As we discussed in earlier meetings, the process of updating the Wasatch Choice Vision and the Regional Transportation Plan includes identifying our aspirations for the future of our region. The award, and this is important, the award of the 2034 Winter Olympics to Utah has really captured people's imagination about what type of place we want to be in 10 years from now and on beyond. The Regional Growth Committee is steering committee for our long-range visions and plans. Let me repeat that. The Regional Growth Committee is the steering committee for our long-range visions and plans. Today, we would like to have a robust committee discussion about how we identify our transportation and associated land use aspirations. Okay, with that, we've asked Andrew and Ted, and they're going to talk about and facilitate this conversation. So please, okay, Andrew, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Dandoy. As Mayor Dandoy said, we want to have some discussion with you. And when I say with you, I mean the people here in the room and also our RGC members online. And though if you're a member of RGC and you're not seeing yourself as a panelist, look for the invite from Andrea and accept it so that you can participate in the discussion, all right? So in Utah, I think we are we are rightly recognized for the really good planning and investing that we do for the future. We actually are known around the country for our unified transportation planning that looks out decades into the future, for our visioning. We talk about our Wasatch Choice Vision, which brings together transportation, housing, land use, economic development, open space, cohesively into a whole as we think about the future. And what I want to do here is bring you all in a little bit into the work, into the details of the work that we do, and candidly present to you a challenge, a tension that exists always in our work, and get your opinions about this, all right? Susie, can you go to the next slide, please? So for the Regional Growth Committee, you may remember a little while back, we had a discussion about this high-level goals for the Wasatch Choice Vision and our regional transportation plan. And these are things like engaging and communicating with our stakeholders, coordinating transportation and land use, increasing safety and quality of life, all of those good things. But I want to focus in on goal number 2. And go to the next slide, Susie. Explore, I'm just going to read this, explore aspirational opportunities for multimodal transportation choices for state and local roads, transit, and active transportation, balanced, and there's the key word, balanced with pragmatic consideration of contexts and costs, okay? This is the tension that is always at play in our work, being aspirational and being pragmatic and prudent about cost, all right? So, and it's always a balance. The Wasatch Choice Vision, it is a vision. It is aspirational in that there's going to be a lot of work needed to accomplish that vision. A lot of investment in transportation with funds that haven't, candidly, that haven't been fully identified yet. Land use, significant changes to our land use that you and local communities, you know, have the control over. But it is not a fantasy. Ben, we talk a lot about what are these terms mean, and I'm putting a fantasy to be even above aspiration, okay? And when I say that, I mean, we don't just put everything into the Wasatch Choice Vision and into Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. We are careful to prioritize the most important infrastructure investments, okay? And in so doing, we think about what do you in your communities, what's most important to you? What do you want to see in your community? What investments bring the greatest return for those investments? Now, we're dealing principally with public dollars, right? And so being prudent in the assumptions for the availability of taxpayer dollars is really important to us, right? Being prudent in the use of those resources and not just assuming, we never just assume that all the money for every idea will just materialize and be available. But there's a balance to be struck. And so now we're in this moment where there is a lot of energy and focus on being bold and being visionary for our future. Now, we always think that way, but as Mayor Dandoy noted, the Olympics are coming in 10 years, and we're incredibly excited about that. Where do we want to be? What type of community do we want to be 10 years from now? And really, more importantly than just the Olympics itself, the day after or the year after the Olympics, what kind of community do we want? And so we are hearing a lot from business leaders, and Ginger Chin from the Salt Lake Chamber. We're going to give her a minute and a few minutes to talk about what the Chamber and the business community are thinking about in this space, from elected leaders and from the community at large. Be bold, be visionary. And sometimes, candidly, people look at our maps, which strike a balance, and say, there's not enough here. We're growing so fast, we've got to invest more. And so this is the tension that we experience. And we want to get your thoughts about this question. How do we do this balance? Should we, I'm going to be extreme in this just to set the parameters, and then ask you to talk about how should we approach this. On one hand, we could simply say, don't worry about cost at all. Don't even worry about feasibility. Just plan for everything that everybody would want to have, right? Be extremely visionary, and we'll worry about the money and the feasibility later. That's one end. And the other end of the spectrum, we could say, no, we're going to be very cautious and very conservative about this, and we're only going to show in the plans the things that we know with certainty as of today that we will be able to afford and will be feasible. We have struck some sort of a balance. We've approached this and we've been somewhere in the middle between those poles, if you will, in our collective work. And now at this stage of our process where we are, we're continually planning as we look ahead to the next version of the Regional Transportation Plan and Utah's Unified Transportation Plan and the Wasatch Choice Vision, the next versions of those, should we swing the pendulum towards being more aspirational? Should we swing it back towards being more conservative? Okay? So there's a lot of detail and planning that goes into all of this, but I want to now, if I may, open this up. There's no right or wrong answers here. So to get your thoughts. So in the room, and then also again, for all of our members that are online, we are watching you. You can enter comments in the chat, but we'd like it even more if you would raise your hand or just speak up. And so let's have some discussion about this. And Mayor, let's just open it up, whoever wants to comment. Beth.
So good morning. Andrew was singing a song that I am very familiar with, and I absolutely am thinking about this as we look at all of the anticipated growth in our communities. We have the Olympics, right? We have a definitive date, but we also have simultaneous growth. And a lot of UTA's projects, I'm sure you're not surprised, a little bit expensive. And how we look at all of these elements going forward is really going to help us to be more aspirational and visionary. I also sit on the Commission for Housing Affordability, and I hear that there could be some housing challenges, shall we say. And there's a lot of structured and thoughtful land use that we can continue to do, which helps, certainly it helps UTA to figure out strategies to connect to these core, what I will call town centers. We can call them different things, but how you identify your city. I'm sitting next to Mayor Tran from Kaysville. How Kaysville identifies itself and what are the major corridors in there and how can transit do this connectivity piece and how they lay out all of the connections is really, really valuable. But we also have to think about what would it look like in 10 years? If we look at our traffic totals, and I'm not Ben, but if we look at our traffic totals, if we don't do some significant thoughtful land use and zoning and connectivity planning in the multimodal space, we're going to have more traffic. And that's going to bring an additional economic burden to every single citizen that's in our communities. And how we do this is we want to make sure, and I know Nicole is on as well, who's going down into the details and looking at these connectivity pieces, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. I talk to Andrew probably like once a week-ish, and I really feel like this is our opportunity to really thoughtfully figure out strategic density and the connectivity that goes with it, whether it's active, whether it's first, last mile. All of these things are connected. So I'm just putting it out there that I want to be on visionary, take a few of the, training wheels off, and don't tell me what the cost is so much as tell me what the connectivity is. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Other comments? Mayor Palmer?
I'll pipe in, talked to Ted yesterday, had Ted and his few of your team out last night to our council meeting. We're going through this fresh look study out in the southwest quadrant, if you will. And it's been eye-opening, I think, to understand as we worked with our neighbors to the south into Utah County, just the massive need. I think there's, we all know the growth out there. We're not unique to the growth, right? But definitely a lot of growth in that area. And we've got the chance right now to be really visionary with this and reset before the growth hits. But it's been interesting to see, because there's a lot of ideas coming out of the area regionally, from extending the red line all the way down. We had always contemplated it going over to the point. Now Eagle Mountain and Saratoga would like to see it go. And we had never even contemplated that because we're there's that imaginary boundary, right, between Salt Lake and Utah counties, if you will. But we've got to get it right now. The growth is happening out there. I don't want to divulge too much, but we're getting contacted since the Olympics have been announced. We're getting contacted about support facilities already because we have the land too. The growth is coming, but we are one of the few areas with the land right now. So there's a headquarters for a national winter sport that wants to relocate to, but they're going to want transportation, support like that. So we've got to find a way to get it now. The cart before the horse. We talked about that yesterday a lot. It's the cart before the horse. We can plan for certain centers, but we don't want to plan for the centers if there's not going to be some transit. And we don't want to, so it's that cart before the horse thing. So we've got to plan this now. We've got to be more than aspirational. We've got to be visionary. We've got to start talking about it. If we don't talk about the big things, they'll never happen, right? That's what we've said about the red line out there. Red line's everybody's, well, the red line will never happen. Well, yeah, if we don't talk about it, it will never happen. But if we start talking about it and, make those pleas to federal dollars to extend fixed rail, we just got to think big right now.
Mayor, there's no question, as you said, that if we don't talk about and at least do preliminary conceptual planning for something, it will never happen. I just want to emphasize a point that Trustee Holbrook and Mayor Palmer are both noting, that it's not just about transportation. It's about the relationship between transportation and land use. Both things have to happen at the same time. Okay. Other thoughts?
Brad, I think you were reaching for the mic. You had a comment? Brad D?
I'm sort of in the middle on this a little bit, having lived both lives, having worked with the 2002 as a mayor and on the council, and working with, I saw some of the problems that would have been addressed had we looked at it a lot sooner than we had, and started looking at preservation corridors, land that we would need for those particular things. Was it a great Olympics? Probably the greatest of all time, but we still had things that we worked on, especially in the transportation and providing access to these venues as we moved around the state. Let me just point a couple of things out. Where's the funds coming from? And if we're all realistic, we know where the funds will finally come from. They'll come from the federal government in great magnitude, but you've got to convince your other partners, and one of which is the legislature, and the legislature will be providing funds. But when? And the thing we need to understand is that these legislatures, when they put together a budget, and we all know this, they put together a budget, and it's the legislature's budget. And with all due respect to the governor and what he asked for, we try to support that. But when I was in the legislature, we went through that budget, and we would approve those things where we had trust with partners. And so, Andrew, I think you've established that with the Wasatch Front. My question a couple of weeks ago, well, a month ago, when I was first on the Transportation Commission, and I'm not quiet, by the way. But anyway, I had some questions about some areas in the area where I live. Some of the snafus that we ran in when we hosted the Olympics in 2002 with the parking, and what we did at Snow Basin with some of the events at Snow Basin, what we're going to do there. It's changed in that particular area. Morgan County has grown. The access has changed dramatically since 2002. The comment that I got last week was, we have 10 years. We've got 10 years. How long does it take to build a facility for this? How long does it take to get corridor preservation, to buy the land, to get all the things studied? I know we're doing that in that particular area of northern Utah right now, but they still need funding. And so if we're negating the fact that we should be looking closely at those partners that will provide that funding, and I know we're doing that, but that was basically where our emphasis needs to be right now. You give UDOT a task and they'll do it. The famous thing, when my first comment to Carlos Becerra, who I love, by the way, when I was a newly elected legislator, and I wanted to finish a freeway in Weber County to Box Elder. And I went to Carlos at a meeting and I said, Carlos, I want you to build this freeway to Box Elder County through Weber County. And he said, Representative, you give me the money and I'll build it. So that's what I'm saying here today. If you want UDOT to do these things, And if you want them to send positive signals on these areas and these infrastructures and these corridors, we need to be thinking now. And it is 10 years out. The legislature sometimes moves a little slower than we would like. I'm looking at probably 3 to 4 years before funding's even appropriated for the minor things for these things. And then we'll be in a world of rush in the last 5 years as partners with UDOT. And as a member of that commission, I would like to see some really early partnerships on those preservation for land and what we anticipate doing. I know that we need to finish the study in Morgan County. We need to get that done fairly quickly. And your voice from this Wasatch Front Regional Council plays a big part in what happens at UDOT, major part. So if we become extremely proactive right now, not in 3 years, but today, I think you'll see a lot of this come to fruition and be on the planning stages, corridors purchased, land purchased, and moving forward in just a few years rather than trying to put that all together in the last few years. So happy to be a partner in that, but I'm only one person.
Thank you very much, Brad. I see online, I want to turn, we have Kendall Thomas, Commissioner from Tooele County, and Mayor Ramsey. We'll go to them, and then we'll come back to folks in the room here. Commissioner Thomas.
Hey, thank you, Andrew, and appreciate being a part of the Growth Committee. So many times out in Tooele County, we kind of, we're out there. We're the ones out there with all the ground, and everybody in your community that's moving out of your communities is moving to Tooele County, even though you're growing like crazy, and I understand. Please understand 80% of our population, our work population, commutes to Salt Lake. They impact your communities. We also have 2 military bases that move transportation, critical items in and out of Dugway, out of Tooele Army Depot, critical to the support of our nation and to the economy of Tooele County and the state of Utah. So as we talk about these, and we have one corridor that connects us, and that's I-80, unless you go around through Saratoga Springs back through Lehigh. We have one corridor, and it's pinched right at Lake Point, where you have 2 railroads, the Great Salt Lake, 2 railroads, the Great Salt Lake, and 1 freeway. And so there's a lot of multitudes, but as we discuss this, we need to think clear out into the future, because the Salt Lake Valley is filling up. Tooele County is now the next, and we are a bedroom community, I realize that. But we need to be a visionary, as we've talked, and I support this, Andrew. I think you're spot on in the efforts doing this. But just because we're Tooele County and we're not in the Salt Lake Valley, we're very important to your economic systems too. So let's think forward about it. So just my comments there, and thank you again for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you very much, Council Member. There's no question that across the entire region, there are needs and opportunities. And you mentioned Salt Lake County and the Valley filling up. That's a nice segue to Mayor Ramsey in a fast-growing South Jordan. Mayor.
We are filling up. And thank you. So I'm going to apologize, Andrew. I don't know if you touched on this. I hung up from the phone for a brief moment to join with the correct link. So if you said this, I didn't hear it. It was just during that moment. I don't think you did. But one thing that comes to mind to me as we think big and try to think about what we want our communities to look like, how we want to be connected and move around, is also, I've heard several people say we've got to do these big projects. The Olympics are coming. Let's come up with new big projects. And it occurs to me that we have prioritized data-driven projects that each of our communities already have on the plan, on the list as well. And there's a balance we need to strike between new big things that don't exist, that we're like, because of the Olympics, let's add this to the list, and not throwing away the prioritized list that we have all made and worked on and are working toward. So, I mean, it is a balance, and we have to be aspirational. And I hope that there is additional funding available for some of our big ideas, because we're scrambling, all of us at this point, to have funding available for our very important prioritized ideas to even keep communities moving at this point and moving for the next 10 years. So that's just one thing I think we need to make sure we keep in mind as we come up with our big ideas for the Olympics, and what we want our communities to look like as a result of that. We can't forget that every one of our communities also has other plans and priorities in place, and it's just something we're going to have to navigate. It won't be easy to navigate, but I think we just have to be mindful of that we have to stay the course with the plan we have, and we can add to it, but I don't think it should replace the priorities that any of our communities have right now, because I know my community would suffer if any of the things that we are hoping to accomplish over the next 10 years were to be eliminated in lieu of something grander. Does that make sense? Anyway, I hope that makes sense. I just wanted to bring that point up. I've given it a lot of thought. This is a lot for us to navigate, but this is the right group to do it. So thanks.
Yeah. Mayor, thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense to us in our work, because we work with and listen to all of you in cities and counties all around the region, UDOT and UTA, and spend literally years identifying priorities that are sort of next in line, if you will. And then I hear from all of you also about additional things that you would like to have done in your communities. And we do have to be careful. There are trade-offs. If we identify something that is big and bold and exciting and expensive, does that mean that it takes priority over other things that have already been identified in the plans over years? Let's do this. We're going to go to Mayor Lundberg, and then we're going to go to Mayor Barney online, and then I'm going to turn to Ginger Tin from the Salt Lake Chamber. So Ginger, you can talk to us a little bit about what the business community discussion is in this space. Mayor Lundberg.
Yes, all the comments have been really great so far. And I think one thing that as a local community that's maybe a smaller community, having kind of a top-down messaging like this is really valuable, but also maybe making sure the communication at the local level, the granular level, there's almost a bottom-up conversation happening within every little micro community, identifying their needs, their opportunities. And one thing too is I know a lot of people are talking about, well, let's see what funding we can get from tax dollars. I don't think that's the only source. I think we also have opportunities with our economic development. So we can either let the growth and the development kind of happen to us hodgepodge, or we can have more of a holistic vision view as a local community. When I work with an economic development partner, I can say, oh, we need to think of bicycle lanes. We need to think of connectivity, walkable, bikeable in this neighborhood or in this commercial area. And talking about, this opportunity for the Olympics and leveraging those opportunities with, making sure that the way things develop have this cohesive vision and view of what we want and need. So that was my
Mayor, thank you very much.
Public-private partnerships can contribute.
I'm so glad that you made that point, that the resources aren't only coming from the federal government or the state government. We're spending more money now in Utah. The state of Utah and the federal government are spending more money now on transportation infrastructure than in the history of our country. And it's still not enough to do all the things that we need. And so I just want to point, you're noting other potential funding sources, and we talked about the relationship between transportation and land use. Value is created through infrastructure investment, and some of that value can be recaptured to fund the costs of that infrastructure. Tax increment financing, there's tools available that we've worked on, housing and transit reinvestment zones and others. So putting together a package of funding sources so that the burden is not solely borne by taxpayers. The private sector participates in contributing paying for some of the costs of the value that's created through the public investment. So, okay, let's go to Mayor Barney and then to Ginger.
All right, thank you. A few of the things that Mayor Ramsey was speaking to really resonated with me and with where our community is at presently. And that's this idea that the announcement of the Olympics is exciting, and the idea of doing grand and big projects specifically catered to that and taking advantage of the funding that's going to come because of that, those are all wonderful things. But I think from a standpoint of a smaller community, of which I'm a part of, that is not a venue city, that doesn't have a lot of proximity to existing venues and potential future venues, there is a concern that funding will be reallocated to prioritize those other projects while these areas like mine maybe languish a little bit over the next 10 years. And I am not a big I don't want to be negative about this, but I think that there's a balance. And I think that there isn't I think there is a way to maintain what we need to keep the area operating soundly and efficiently while also accommodating the Olympics. I just worry that we might swing the pendulum too far to one side and then be left with bigger messes post-Olympics that we're trying to clean up in areas that were maybe neglected or not thought of because we were so focused and prioritized on these other bigger areas. Does that make sense?
It does, Mayor. Thank you. And I think this conversation is getting to the tension inherent in our work. In a way, the easiest thing for us to do at WFRC and at UDOT and UTA for that matter would be to just say, sure, put everything in the plan. You know, I mean, to be a little funny about this, you want a project? You want a project? Sure, put it all in the plan. But then paying for that, funding it, prioritizing it, having a sense of fairness, if you will, that there are criteria for prioritizing projects. And everyone could make arguments for what the right criteria should be. So this is the challenge that we confront. This conversation could go on for a long time, and we do have other things that we have on the agenda. Do you, Mayor Stanger, you want to make a brief
If you don't
comment?
mind, I just have a few specifics. Many of you guys know I love to travel, and so I get to see how other cities have solved some of these issues. So I just wanted to just kind of give some actual specifics that have done other places that we can then add to the list to look at. I know the Olympics is going to be a catalyst to fast track this stuff, but I think our vision here should be this 25 and 50 years on how we handle the growth even post that. And so cost feasibility, it's been done in other cities. I know we're already working on the double tracking for Front Runner, but I think that's something that's easy, can be done fairly quickly. We've got light rail additions. At some point in time, we're going to have to look about going up double deck and I-15. There's already carpool lanes and other lanes all through Orange County, California. You guys can boo me now, but the gondola, Rio Grande Underground, the Boring Company, most other cities have some form of subway. They can even do stuff underwater nowadays. The toll roads back east, I think it's that we need to look at private partnerships with public on building some roads and just having them pay for roads. There's a toll bridge in South Ogden many of you guys are familiar with. It's been absolutely successful. I think is very crucial for this next I-15 expansion is reversible lane control. You can take 2 lanes right down the center, put guards on them, and then every morning, those extra 2 lanes go to Salt Lake. Every night, those extra 2 lanes come away from Salt Lake. And so those are some things that I think, you know, let's start having some discussions. Let's start vetting some of these out so we can do big things, because that's really what's going to impact us 25 and 50 years from now. Just got back from Paris, and I think how amazing it is that literally they handled the Olympics with just Subway and Uber and Lime bikes. So thank you.
And in Paris, if you go there, which I had the opportunity to do relatively recently also, there are bike lanes everywhere. And you might think, oh, well, of course, that's always been that way. And it hasn't always been this way. They made a decision to make it more bikeable. All right, let me just note, here's what's going to happen for just the next few minutes, okay? First of all, I'm glad that we record these meetings, because Mayor Sanger threw out a lot of ideas and lots of discussion. We as a staff are going to go back and re-listen to all of this, okay? This conversation can continue. Ted will talk about this in a moment, but we have our workshops that we do around the region. We can continue having some of this conversation in a more focused way and sub-regional workshops. Also, you see on the screen right now a Slido. We're going to end this portion of the discussion by giving you, each of you, if you want, the opportunity to write down an aspirational concept that you'd like to have considered, okay? Having said that now, we're going to go to Ginger again, Ginger Chin with the Salt Lake Chamber. the Salt Lake Chamber has been coordinating an effort called Utah Rising, which is looking more broadly than just infrastructure, but about what kind of place do we want Utah to be in the decade and decades to come. Ginger, can you talk to us about that, please?
Sure. I created a slide deck, but I think I'm just going to ditch most of the slides and just have some real talk, if that's okay. So this conversation's been fantastic. And I don't know if you all are our podcast listeners. I'm an avid podcast listener. And on CityCast Salt Lake last week, they referenced this group and talked about the power of this group. And that's pretty evident by the people around this table and online and the comments and the passion about communities. So again, as Andrew mentioned, the Salt Lake Chamber working on a concept called Utah Rising. And I just want to share a little bit of feedback to everyone. We had a board meeting, we had our board members there, and we were having a conversation very much like this in anticipation of all of these changes that we're seeing. Hockey, the change in downtown, the list went on. And the shift from being a small state to a mid-sized state, to an elite economy, this multicultural state, all of these changes that we're seeing. And we got some feedback from our business members, and they said, we feel like we don't have a voice. We really want to have a voice in all these changes. You know, we're head down doing business, we're working hard, but we feel like whenever there's talk about big changes across the state, a lot of what it's presented to us, and we work through that. So with that information in mind, we set out and started to talk about other chambers across the nation on how they handle this. And many of them do economic visioning from the business community, but do it in partnership with government partners, not in a silo, not independent, but in partnership. So we started holding stakeholder meetings to say, what's important? What are you looking at? And what's fascinating is it's the same things that you all talk about. I mean, your residents, everybody, we're talking about the same things. And out of those conversations, we came up with some core principles about how we want to work with our partners and common ground, but this bold vision that Andrew's talking about. And shortly after we started having these meetings, we have steering committees, technical meetings, all of the stuff that you all do. Andrew calls me and he says, we're already doing a lot of this. We have these plans in place and they've been in there forever. And, we don't want to have the chamber coming out and we're having a misstep, and that's not what we're doing.
I said that very friendly and collaboratively, just to be clear.
Yes,
Ginger?
no, it really was.
Okay. Great, let's work together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, and I didn't mean that in a negative light at all. I mean, it was a friendly conversation, but we have to have real conversations and we have to call each other and say, hold up, what's going on here? And through that, we said, yeah, we know a lot of these business leaders are going to throw out big unconstrained views. They're going to throw out these, what we're calling WIGs, these wildly important goals. I mean, they're going to be throwing out some of these big aspirations, but knowing that we are in such great hands with UDOT, UTA, Wasatch Front Regional Council, all of our AOGs really working, rolling up their sleeves. But we want to put this out there on paper. What is important to the business community? And I'll just tell you that we had really 5 areas that we were looking at, things that we've talked about in here too. Quality of life. Sorry, I have my back to you. I'm so sorry. Quality of life was the first one. Workforce and education, business environment in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship, natural resources, and then infrastructure and connectivity, which is where we are today. What was fascinating about the conversations is at the end of the day, they came back and said, we want to focus on 2 pillars, really. I mean, let's go in hard on some of those, but the 2 pillars that are most important to the business community, workforce and education, no surprises. Infrastructure and connectivity was the second one. And we know there's a lot of work being done, and we're not trying to come in the middle of it. What we see is Wasatch Front's work with, there's our Wasatch Choice, GoEO's business plan, and then our business leaders coming forward. This is things that are important to us. There's going to be a sweet spot in the middle where we all can work together collaboratively. So, I think we said there can be growth by chance, where it's happening to us, or growth by choice. And that's really where we're at a point right now at our state where we're doing a listening tour. So that's my 5 minutes. Does that help, Andrew?
Very much, Ginger, and I'll conclude my portion here, Mayor, by echoing Ginger's point about to get things done for our community, it doesn't happen just by government acting alone. It happens by the private sector and the public sector and the community collaborating together and identifying shared goals. You have given us a lot to digest here. I have heard a lot of energy for being aspirational and being bold. I've also heard cautions about making sure that we don't skip over already identified really important priorities to do something that is exciting. So there's trade-offs involved. And I also, nobody said that we should ignore cost. And so I think we are going to try to maintain with our partners to be able to have an aspirational view, but then also do our job, which is to evaluate the constraints that exist on us in terms of feasibility and cost. And so I think we can do both of these, that we collectively can do both of these things, think aspirationally, and then also consider, be prudent about the use of limited resources. So a lot to chew on, but thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew, and great comments, by the way. There's a second question in this. We're going to ask Ted if you go ahead and introduce the second question.
You got it, Mayor, and I'm going to aim to be pretty succinct in this, but two things. One, we'd love to get your thoughts on, what's our approach to gathering input and ideas? What's our path forward to do that? And then I'll open up this Slido question. This is, if you would, kindly for the committee members to respond to this Slido question, but that's why I left that open. And if you go to slido.com, you can enter in that number, or you can use that QR code. That'll come back.
Is that open right now for people to go ahead and do?
The question itself has not opened yet. I have to open it, but anyway,
okay.
I could. I can't anyway. Here I'm going to keep on trucking. Just make your mental notes of your ideas. So process of identifying aspirations. Now, I think you all know this, but as a reminder, when we develop an update to the Wasatch Choice Vision and the Regional Transportation Plan, it's a royal we process. WFRC facilitates it, but local governments are at the table. We want to hear the ideas from the private sector. We're going to gather the ideas that come from Utah Rising, but would love any advice you've got about process. You see, these are some audiences that we're focusing in on. Are we missing an audience? General public, local government stakeholders, the private sector, agency partners. And I want to just noodle on that, and then I'm going to spend a second to talk about the fall workshops. These are scheduled already. The guidance from today will help us know how to proceed in that. But these fall workshops are really cool. It's a gathering of a group of communities that have common conditions and know each other, but don't really have often an opportunity to kind of swap notes, and even more than swapping notes, actually plan and think about ideas together. So we're talking about council and mayors, key local staff from each community, county officials, UDOT, UTA. We invite state legislators. It's kind of a really cool group of people. Now, you can't really see that map very well, and I'm going to invite another WFRC staff member to put into the chat the list of the locations just for the sake of time.
Rosie did it already.
Okay. To save me from having to kind of relay that, but those are coming up. The first one is on October, is it 16th in Brigham City, and we're excited for that. These are our 3 workshop objectives that we're working on that we will get feedback on. Let's get ideas on the table to improve our transportation system. Those can be modest and they can be grand. They can be aspirational and they can be, this intersection isn't working. Second, let's explore updates to our Wasatch Choice city and town centers. That can be aspirational too. What are the places that you want to create in your community? And by the way, how does that help us resolve some of our transportation issues as well, or even enable us to get better public transportation. And then item 3, there's been a lot of thought put in collectively on in-town trails, these kind of trails that get you to your destinations. You know, the Utah Trail Network, Beehive Bikeways, there's efforts underway. We want to put the draft maps in front of you for refinement on that. So those are workshop objectives in the fall, and for you to sort of be aware of, and please help get the word out to your other stakeholders in your community or area about those. Now, I'm pausing on this now for feedback. What advice do you have as WFRC collectively, the royal we, engages in this process of identifying aspirations? I'd like to open that up if you've got a thought or two on that.
Thank you. I just finished texting Andrew and Ted. I'm like, hey, here's a thought. And I didn't realize we were going to have this as a topic, so I apologize. But I'm actually, given Ginger's comment, I'm just going to say we should also be including our higher education partners. I think that all of them, they're certainly from the business side, they all reach out to UTA and ask us, how can we get connectivity? I think Southwest Salt Lake County really pointed out that Slick did a development with an assumption of transit, and that wasn't really there in a robust way. And so I think we need to include the education partners, because they're also going to be the ones who are driving the discussions about innovation and entrepreneurship and all of these private sector things. And so maybe we could incorporate them as well.
I think we're working with local community representatives in all areas. Local leaders will be able to identify community groups, constituencies, especially underserved communities that are not typically invited at the table or present. I think that affirmative outreach to make sure that people are engaged. You talk about this massive economic development, the economic justice and economic equities should be central to the discussion. So identifying groups that might not be in on the meetings and the boardrooms, typically, number one, and with the business community, absolutely. The big players and then the emerging voices, working with our local chambers, working with business leaders, but local officials are probably in a great place to help identify those, to make sure that we're thinking proactively and engaging proactively with underrepresented groups. And I just wanted to add on the prior discussion with the big thinking parallels to, who should be invited to these discussions. The big thinking sets opportunity for future growth, for more big thinking. And I don't know if you heard in Sandy, we had the groundbreaking this Monday for the NHL training facility in Sandy. That would not have been possible without all the prior planning that has gone on. And as I stood on the stage and looked at the audience there, that was it's such an exciting moment. But I couldn't help but think about all the planners and all of the investment. The reason that site was attractive was because front runners across I-15, Trax is behind us on State Street, the I-15 corridor, the businesses that had invested over the decades to make Southtown Mall successful, and those businesses that maintained their presence even in the lean times as they struggled. So I think I always think of the people that have done the kind of quiet heavy lifting in a community, and those people are present, but they might not be known at government levels.
Please.
Just as Brandon mentioned, I think we all can imagine different places we've traveled and been to where we can kind of see things that have been really successful. I think we should really be intentional. Whenever you're starting a new business or you want to go into a new career, what do? You find someone who is awesome at that and you pick their brain. You find out what the wins and the pitfalls were. I think we should look at other places throughout the world and maybe do some case study or talk to people that were intricately involved in executing a plan there and learn what they learned.
I love that, Mayor, and I wonder if there's interest on the committee to bring some of that, lessons learned to this for discussion. I'm looking around to see if there was a comment that we need to get to. Obviously, we're we're open to a lot of feedback on this on an ongoing basis. And maybe you can even verbalize anything else you want to share on that as I finally open up the Slido question. So this should be live. And as you type this in, we'll start to see them come up. And we did this because we knew time would end up being short and we wouldn't have an opportunity to talk individually about your aspirational ideas. So I hope you'll understand the reason for doing the Slido. Slidos are fun anyway.
And Ted, I think the idea here is we'll leave this open. If you want to type in an aspirational idea, go ahead. We'll have the workshops and we can leave this open even as we move on to our remaining items, correct?
I believe that is the way it works. I'm hoping.
Okay, good.
I'm not positive.
But we're always here to talk anyway, so
Oh,
thank
you know what? I know that can work.
Okay.
Yeah, I just stopped sharing my screen and it'll be open.
Okay, terrific. This is designed right now for the RGC members itself, well, RGC members and alternates. And then to the other points that have been made, Mayor Zoltansky's point and others, the workshops are coming, other opportunities for outreach, but this is focused on a regional growth committee discussion right now, and it's been a good one. Thank you.
At the end of the meeting, I will pull this back up for sharing it, just in case you're interested. Mayor?
Okay, a great conversation, great input. Let me just make a comment if I can real quickly as we close this particular item. Conversation about how do we get this engaged in the population has to be more than just suggesting this is a Salt Lake City or Salt Lake County program. The Olympics are bigger than that. They are a state, we can argue this a nation. The challenge may very well be is how do we get the small communities? How do we get communities like Clinton or how do we get communities like Sunset to feel like a part of this interesting twice in a lifetime opportunity? I rarely ever get a chance to say that. But it is powerful if we handle it right and we do it right and we invite all to participate to be part of it. The challenge may very well be is how do we get a city like Roy City to feel like I'm part of the Olympics when in fact I don't have a venue? But if we can do that, then everybody along the Wasatch Front, everyone in the state, okay, can feel like they contribute, that this is our Olympics. And I think we can make some great things happen. I look at this as really being a moment in time, and we got 10 years to get ready for it. So let's take advantage of that. Let's make it exciting for every one of us. And to be honest with you, Beth, if we can have a conversation about putting a purple line, now it gives you an idea how often I come to Salt Lake, purple line in Weber and Davis County, because we have the Weber State University who's purple, then why don't we have a conversation about how we can finally put an idea in place about a tracks program in northern Utah? Because we have an opportunity and we are growing. And Davis County is growing, and certainly Weber County is right behind it along with Morgan. We can do this if we have the vision to make things happen. I'm excited about it. We just need to get everybody excited about it as well. But we're excited about this opportunity. So thank you for the input. Thanks for the comments. Unless there's anything else, I'd like to move now to the fourth item on our agenda, which talks about stationary planning. Okay, with that, we'll now consider certification requests from three station areas in Clearfield, Murray, and Woods Cross, in coordination with the stationary planning components of state law and Wasatch Regional Council policy. We have representatives from each city that will share highlights and consideration for these station area plans. I'm going to turn the time over to Meg and Brian, if you two will go ahead and lead us in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So we're pulling this presentation up. Oh, thanks. It's up there. We have 3 station area plans to consider today, but those are in 4 communities. One of these is for a Woods Cross station, but it's for West Bountiful. So we've got stationary plan in Clearfield. This is an update to the Clearfield Frontrunner station area plan. We have a station area plan for Murray North Station in Murray and Mill Creek. And then we have a resolution for West Bountiful for their portion of the Woods Cross station. Woods Cross is working on their half of that station area right now, but West Bountiful has done a feasibility study for a stationary plan. So we'll talk about that today too. Go ahead. A little reminder about stationary planning. So in 2022, House Bill 462 required that all stations with a fixed rail or BRT station do a stationary plan for either a half mile around that fixed rail or a quarter mile around that BRT station. So we're working through that now. This all came out of a housing conversation, right? So one of that first goal of stationary planning is to increase the availability and affordability of housing. There are also goals to promote sustainable environmental conditions, enhance access to opportunities, and increase transportation choices and connections. There are some required components of these plans. One of those is a vision. These plans need to be visionary, very much fitting with the conversation we've had today. They need to have a map of that station area. They need to have a 5-year implementation plan, also very fitting with our conversation, right? As we look 10 years in the future, all of these cities are going to have a 5-year plan of how they're starting to make these centers a transit-oriented community. That doesn't mean that these plans will be all built in the next 5 years or anything like that, but that means that the cities are doing what they can do to set these up to be really great neighborhoods at our transit stations. These plans all need to have a statement describing how they meet those 4 objectives I talked about, and they have to engage stakeholders and the public. The stakeholders need to be UTA, UDOT, neighboring communities, right, and the Wasatch Front Regional Council, or MAG, Mountain Land Association of Governments in Utah County. We have technical assistance to help with this, and actually all of these plans that you'll be hearing about today have received that technical assistance. They've gone through the process, we've completed them, the cities have adopted them, and now they're in front of you for certification. So really wonderful to see that funding being put to work. Little progress update. So there are 127 station areas. That's because lots of those stations are right on a city border and they cover 2 or 3 cities. So we have lots of work to do. We're focused on this 4 today, these 4 stationary plans submitted for certification. I also want to draw attention to the 52. That's 52 station areas that are somewhere in the planning process. That's a lot. So there's a kind of a wave of work coming your way. So Regional Growth Committee, prepare yourself to certify a lot of these. I imagine this will not be the last meeting where you have 3 of them in front of you. And in the future, it could be even more. So keep an eye on those packets that come out because there could be meetings with lots of those 52 for you to consider. And then we've already certified 24 of these. So we're making really great progress and hoping to add 4 more today. Here's what you'll be considering. So Clearfield almost has its whole station area. You see that little sliver in the bottom corner. But Clearfield has updated a station area plan that was good to begin with, and we've updated it and we've made it better, bigger and better for Clearfield. The Murray North Station, you can see straddles that Murray Mill Creek line. These cities came together to work on this, which is fantastic. So now it'll be one really great complete station area wrapped up in one plan. And then that's the Woods Cross Station all the way at the end of the screen, but it's West Bountiful's portion. So that northern portion there is what we'll consider today. I'm going to turn it over to Byron to talk about each of these.
Thank you, Meg. So yeah, we'll just go in alphabetical order and we'll start with Clearfield. As has been mentioned, Clearfield was already doing a lot of great planning work in this area. And what the passage of HB 462 allowed was for the city to revisit a larger geographic scope. You can hopefully make out the kind of stationary district, which was the original scope, and see how that has been expanded here. And so some things that have been added with this plan are some medium and low density residential to the north, some mixed use in this little wedge to the southeast across State Street, and then also AT connection down to the DNRG via Antelope Drive, as well as some commercial and residential along the east side of State Street, and also design guidelines for the rest of the area that's outside the existing master development agreement that is already underway and being constructed as we speak. I believe we have Mayor Shepherd online, so I just turn it to him and offer him space to make some comments on it.
Well, thanks. You've got me, but you got a much wiser, intelligent person sitting in the chairs with you there. You got our planner, Brad McElrath, who'll probably be better to speak about this. But as you mentioned, ours is more of an update than anything else. We've got, and it's kind of a hard place to plan. When you start talking in Clearfield at the station about going a half a mile, well, we can go east a half a mile, we can go north a half a mile, we can go south a half a mile. What we can't do is go west a half a mile because we're into Freeport, and I don't think there's a whole lot we'll ever be able to develop in Freeport, although I'd love the opportunity. But if you drive out to Clearfield Station, and hopefully we'll all get to do that at some point, the horizontal infrastructure is all in. All of the parking's in, the new park is in. The first phase of housing came in a while ago. We should break ground hopefully soon on a little later this year on the next phase, and are looking forward to that. But just a great work in progress and a lot going on. I'll let Brad answer give more information than that. But thanks for letting me at least come here and support.
Thank you, Mayor. And so we have a suggested motion here. You have all the information in your packets, including their stationary plan that was submitted to us and our findings and analysis report. Staff has reviewed this according to our adopted policy and found that it fulfills the requirements of HB 462 and are therefore making a positive recommendation to RTC to recommend to the council to certify this plan. And I will, at this time, turn it back to Chair Dandoy for any discussion.
Okay. Any comments, questions before we ask for a motion to recommend the certification?
Mayor, I just had a quick
Please.
comment. I absolutely, when 462 came about, it was in the Commission for Housing Affordability that this is where this started. And I think that I absolutely love what Mayor Shepherd has done and his city has done. They've really worked to try to make this as strategically dense as possible, to incorporate multiple elements, housing, residential, as well as density residential and commercial. And I just am so excited to see this coming to these next phases. They've done an excellent job.
Great comment, Beth. Thank you. Any other comments?
Make Brad get up and say something. I mean, I made him come down there. Tell him he has to get up and say something.
Sure, Brad.
I mean, he
Thank you,
dressed
Mayor.
up and everything for this. Come on.
Well, I appreciate you, Mayor. But first and foremost, just to say, to echo what Beth had said about this wouldn't have been possible without the support and the encouragement from our mayor and city council. Looking back over the last so many years as we've adopted the original station area plan, and then we worked with UTA to select a development team with Stack Real Estate and Hamilton Partners with the master development plan. It's all been because the mayor and the city council have a vision for this area to tie into our front runner station. So that's been crucial. And so that has helped us as staff. It's empowered us as staff to be bold and to look at opportunities here in the station area, and to look at opportunities and also look at things a little bit differently. As we've taken it to the city council, this plan did have some more expanded areas further to the east, but our city council, rightfully so, recognized that in those areas we already have some affordable housing, and by identifying those areas for redevelopment would remove existing affordable housing that's already within the transit station area and within that half mile. And so we backed off of that a little bit to say we want to make sure that we preserve these areas, this housing that's already here that's affordable, that now has even better access than it's ever had before for the front runner station, that stay in our plan. And so we feel really confident we meet all of those requirements of the state code. We're excited to keep moving forward. And as Mayor said, our next project is going to be coming on, starting construction this fall. And we were hoping to see all of the commercial, and hopefully we see all the office that we wanted to see before COVID. That certainly could change, and we're open to being flexible and seeing some changes there if necessary. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee has about this plan.
Any questions? Okay, Brad, thank you. Okay, great rundown. Okay, we're looking for a motion, okay, to recommend certification of the stationary plan covering Clearfield Front Runner Station.
Okay, I move to recommend certification of the stationary plan covering the Clearfield Front Runner Station.
Perfect, thank
I'll
you, Mayor.
second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor of approving the recommendation to forward to the Wasatch Regional Council for the certification stationary plan of Clearfield Front Runner Station, say aye.
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 Thank you. Is there any opposed? Hearing none, that recommendation will go forward. Thank you.
Great. And now, well, my sharing just went away. Okay, great. Now we can talk about Murray North. So we have the Murray North Station, as has been mentioned, is a station area that expands significantly up into Mill Creek as well. And so we really love to see the collaborative effort that went on between those two cities on this station area plan. This is an area that already has a lot of housing, and more is on the way. And so kind of the heart of this plan was, what else can we add to this area to make it more of a place, to make it more livable, more walkable, a place for people to spend their time when they're not at home and work. So to that end, this plan, it contemplates some green corridors, both for active transportation and recreation and open space access, including notably along Big Cottonwood Creek. The area between the tracks line and the Union Pacific and Front Runner rails to the west is an area that has been a focus of Murray City in terms of crime. So this plan includes some crime prevention through environmental design recommendations, as well as additional road accesses into that area to hopefully open it up and provide more eyes on the street and things of that nature. And then finally, it contemplates redevelopment of what is currently a foam factory directly west of the transit station into more housing and mixed use, as well as adding new community uses and a grocery store in an area that is currently a food desert. And so we have with us Councilmember Catton from Mill Creek and also Zach Smallwood from Murray to provide additional comments. So I'll turn it over to Councilmember Catton first.
Hi, thanks for having me. Sylvia Catton. I represent District 1 in Mill Creek City. This is in my district, and I just want to make a few comments. It'll be brief. This area of Mill Creek that kind of comes into this fire clay area has a long time been of an industrial use. And in the last, I would say maybe 15 years, it's kind of turned over. And it's kind of where we've put a lot of high density housing, and I've welcomed that because I think it's a great place for it. One of the things that we worked with Murray is kind of not only some placemaking, but also trying to find ways that we could use this area plan as a way to make fire clay have its own identity, which was very important with some of like the crime that we were seeing and social issues that we were seeing in the area. I do want to point out that this plan is actually pretty critical to our city in that because we do have higher density housing in this area, within the last 4 years, since about 2020, we've added we have plans to add about 750 housing units, 150 of which are affordable, which is a really big deal for our city. They've done a great job. I don't know if Rob has anything else to add, but those are my comments. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please.
Hi, I'm Zach Smallwood. I'm the planning manager at Murray. I apologize, Mayor Hales was not able to attend. He had another meeting at 10, so he wasn't able to be here. But we've worked on this plan. Fire clay was one of the first areas after the tracks was installed to really start looking at housing in this area. I saw that Professor Ewing was on. I met with him and one of his PhD students just recently about displacement, and found that 88% of the housing in this fire clay area is deeply affordable already. Of the 2,000 homes that are already located in this area, about 88% are already in the affordable area. What's led to that is, as you know, affordability reduces some of the expendable income for people. So we haven't seen a lot of that commercial space start to fill in. And so we're trying to find a balance on how to do that. And that's really focusing a lot of the focus on this plan. We have a lot of affordable housing here. So increasing that diversity in that and opening up that green space, and yeah, great plan.
Great comments. Thank you.
I don't have a comment. I don't have a question. I do have a brief personal comment, if you'll allow me. And that is, first of all, I'm a Mill Creek resident, and I love that our city is participating in this. Thank you very much. And my daughter lives in the Fireclay development, takes tracks up to the U every day, and it's really been terrific. Doesn't own a car, doesn't have to. That's what she wants. That's a lifestyle that she wants, and it's nice that that choice is available.
Brian?
Great. Well, as with the Clearfield stationary plan, staff has done the review on this and finds that it fulfills the requirements of HB 462 and is making a positive recommendation to RGC to recommend to council to certify the plan. And we have a suggested motion on the screen.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Chair, I'll make that motion. I move to recommend certification of the Murray North Station Area Plan, including both Murray City and Mill Creek.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Thank you. All in favor then of approving the recommendation for certification of this particular stationary plan, say aye.
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 Do we have anybody opposed? Okay, hearing none, we'll make a recommendation to the Wasatch Regional Council for the certification of this stationary plan. Thank you, Brian.
Can I also just note, the way this program, well, I know you have one more, Byron. The way this program works for stationary planning is our staff, UTA's team, the community, of course, work together, and we usually hire consultants as well, and they are an integral part of the team. And I know our friends from GSBS are here with us who did a lot of work on this particular station, so I just want to give them a shout out too, on behalf of the entire consulting community who are our partners in this. Thank you.
Great.
Brian, thank you.
And yes, one more. The West Bountiful portion of the Woods Cross Front Runner Station. As you can hopefully see on the map to the bottom left, this area is dominated by the Sinclair refinery, but the city still chose to come to WFRC and UTA and put forth a real effort to make a real hard look and see what, if anything, there was to be able to be done to improve, affordable housing affordability, environmental conditions, transportation choices, and access to opportunities without jeopardizing the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and visitors. And unfortunately, the feasibility study showed that, Sinclair not only dominates the existing area, but also is increasing its land holdings. And so not planning on ceasing operations here anytime soon. And therefore, the feasibility study found that anything in the West Bountiful portion of the station area would be impracticable and adopted a resolution stating as much. But as was mentioned earlier, Woods Cross City is in the process of doing their own stationary plan for the southern portion, a little further removed from the refinery. So hopefully they'll be able to identify some progress that can be made there. But we're unfortunately, the city manager of West Bountiful, Dwayne Huffman, was going to join us today, but he fell ill this morning. So Megan and I will do our best to answer any questions that anyone on the committee has.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Please.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to talk about this from my perspective. I'm a Bountiful resident, so I'm adjacent. My city is next door to this. And the interesting dynamic about this is because of the expansion of the footprint of Sinclair, their security and safety parameters expand as well. And that's I think, one of the elements that just wanted to articulate on that. I know that the city has wanted to try to do something, but those safety concerns do create a unique challenge for West Bountiful. And so I just wanted to comment on that and tell West Bountiful City and thank them though for for really trying to figure out a strategy to navigate what is a very limited space in a lot of ways. And so, but I completely understand how they came to this. Just a side note, when I was on Bountiful City Council, there was an explosion in this area. And so it's definitely, safety is definitely something to consider. So I just wanted to thank them for all their work.
Thank you, trustee. I do have a question before we ask for a vote. So how will this be pitched to the Wasatch Regional Council for approval? It's obviously not a traditional approach in terms of, hey, this is how we're going to do some housing developments. Is this simply an effort to basically comply with the state law, and we're filling that kind of a square? Or help me understand a little bit what's going to be presented next week.
I'll go ahead and take a stab at that, Mayor. While we'd love to see all of these station areas meet those objectives and plan for housing and everything, there is recognition that some of those station areas just have constraints beyond that city's control, and that's recognized in state code. So there's a clause in state code that allows a city to adopt a resolution stating and proving, really demonstrating impracticability of meeting those objectives. And I do commend West Bountiful. We did a full study. We brought a consultant along. They interviewed the refinery. You know, we did as much as we could to dig into this, and then they're stating that they have this impracticability. So they did really go the full half mile, I guess, in demonstrating that they don't have the ability to make a station area plan. And then they adopted that resolution. So yes, it is really, it's allowing West Bountiful to check that box that they're meeting state code, while it isn't necessarily bolstering those objectives of station area planning.
I'm really glad that actually we're having this little dialogue here, because if you think back, and Beth's nodding and others were involved, the negotiation around the legislation, as Meg is noting, was very involved. And there was candidly a tension with local communities saying, we know our community the best, and we're uncomfortable with the state legislature adopting a one-size-fits-all that requires and dictates exactly how development should occur at the local level. What about conditions that make it practical for Mill Creek to do something, but West Bountiful can't do something? And so the community has to go through, as Meg noted, a process to evaluate and demonstrate impracticability. And then we have to say, yes, we believe that that is the case. But it does reflect that careful balance that was struck between, a one-size-fits-all, and, we don't want to do that. We want to accomplish these really important goals that Meg laid out initially, but we also have to recognize the conditions that are on the ground. So I think what you're seeing here is that balance that was reached in negotiation on the legislation.
Can I just add to that one more point? And this is part of the moderate income housing plan, which was, I think, Senate Bill 34. My brain's probably not working on that. Hey, that's awesome. One of those requirements is that a city identify where their moderate housing income or moderate housing areas could be within their city. And if they had a station area within their city, they had to identify transit as part of that potential for affordable housing. So this is how I'm just tying the bow on it, really, what Andrew said. And that's really why this is coming before us today.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right.
Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, we have one final suggested motion for the committee. Again, we reviewed the feasibility study that the City of West Bountiful did and find that it fulfills the requirements as far as demonstrating impracticability, and therefore are making, again, a positive recommendation to the committee to recommend to council for certification.
Perfect. Any comments, questions on this before I ask for a motion? Anything online? Okay, seeing none, then do I have a motion then to recommend certification of this particular stationary plan?
I'll make a motion I move to recommend certification of the station area plan covering the West Bountiful portion of the Woods Cross Front Runner Station.
Okay, I have a motion then to make a recommendation. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a second. Any other comments before I ask for a vote? Hearing none then, all those in favor of making the recommendation to the Wasatch Regional Council for the approval of this stationary plan, say aye.
Aye.
Do I hear anybody that does not opposes this recommendation of stationary plan? Okay, hearing none, it's approved. Brian, Meg, thank you for the input and thanks for all the input to this conversation. Perfect. Okay, I'd like to move on if we can to action number 5, amending number 2 of the 2023 and 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. The RTP is the transportation element of the Wasatch Choice Vision. Wasatch Front Regional Council adopted the plan is in its entirety every 4 years. But it is the living plan that can be amended to address new considerations. Amending the plan is a collaboration and rigorous process for the Regional Growth Committee, typically considered once a year. At our last RGC meeting in May, we approved the Regional Transportation Plan Amendment 1. Remember that. Today, we have an additional set of relatively modest regional transportation amendments affecting 15 projects. Okay, Jory, you're going to lead us in the conversation on this particular action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Jory John, Director of Long Range Planning. Presenting Amendment 2 to the 2023-2050 Regional Transportation Plan, as the Mayor noted. Quickly going to briefly review the amendment process, provide a high-level overview of each of the projects, and then ask for you to act on the amendment at the end of it. Going to ask for open to public comment during the amendment number 2, level 2 projects, and then approval of those projects. Should be noted that both the Regional Growth Committee technical advisory committees, primarily made up of your planners, reviewed these projects at their July 31st meetings and made a unanimous recommendation that the RGC approve the level 2 projects. And a complete list of the projects with plenty of details are found in your packets if you want some more details on those. Uh-oh, hold on. It is not working. All right, Susie, when I do this, you just pretend like. All right. Reminder, the RTP developed on a 4-year cycle, financial plan and fiscally constrained, conforms to applicable controls, goals, budgets for on-road mobile sources, and ties to your future land use plans in the Wasatch Choice Vision, divided into 3 phases, each about a decade long, for both identifying when projects are needed and when there's funding expected to be available between now and 2050. And the RTP is the starting place for projects to move forward in the prioritization of federal, state, and local projects. As the Mayor mentioned, periodically we need some adjustments to our plan due to changes in funding availability, local and state needs, modification to land use, outcomes of environmental analysis, and other studies or updates to timelines on development of projects. The amendment maintains the rigor of our planning process, including review of financial constraints, public input, and air quality conformity when needed. And the amendment process for each of the 3 amendment levels are outlined on the right side of this chart. Briefly, level 1s are staff modifications with review from both the chair and vice chair of the Regional Growth Committee, and then approval by WFRC's executive director. Level 2 are board modifications reviewed by the RGC tax and RGC, and then approved during this meeting. And then level 3 are full amendments, which include air quality conformity memo, 30-day public comment period, reviewed by the tax, RGC, and final approval by the council. Amendment number 2 only includes level 1 and level 2 type of projects. So all these projects have been reviewed by the interagency consultation team, and the financial constraints were reviewed by Federal Highways. On the next slides, I'll discuss the project types that fit within these categories. And just a reminder, all project requests are developed in consultation with adjacent communities and our transportation partners as we move forward. So each amendment level includes a variety of different type of projects. Most are tied to federal regulations and requirements guiding our project classifications. So level 1, staff modifications, include things like ownership changes, operational changes to roadways, modifications to needs-based phasing changes, all active transportation changes, and changes to the Wasatch Choice Vision centers. Level 2 projects include collector and minor arterial roadway changes, non-fixed guideway transit projects, and changes to corridor preservation. Whereas level 3 full amendment are for principal arterials, freeways, and fixed guideway transit projects. So pretty simple outline and layout there, keeps this nice and clean. And so now I'd like to jump into amendment number 2, the projects, provide a brief highlight of the projects and then jump into the details. So as the mayor made mention, 15 total projects in this amendment. 9 of them are level 1, which were all active transportation requests from local communities in UDOT. These projects have been reviewed by Mayor Dandoy, Commissioner Kamalo, and then approved by Andrew on July 30th. So they've been approved, but I'll walk you through those here in a minute. The level 2 consists of 6 level 2 board modification roadway requests from local communities and 1 from UTA. So quickly, level 1 requests are spread across the region, most in Salt Lake County and 1 up in Clearfield. I'll briefly cover these projects on the following slides. So here we go. Feel free to stop me if you have questions on the projects, but again, there's more detail in your packets. So Clearfield City received some federal funds for a new grade separated pedestrian bridge near 1000 East on State Route 193. This project provides a safer crossing for South Clearfield Elementary and Clearfield High School students and provides a connection to the Clearfield downtown center. The Bingham Creek Trail shared use path will update the alignment per the Copperton Active Transportation Plan, and you can see that alignment change here on the map on the right. East Jordan Canyon shared use path. Cottonwood Heights would like to add this project to the RTP. They began conversations with the canal company, and it's a 2-part project. This part of it is the shared use path that would extend the canal trail through the neighborhood and connect into neighboring cities to the north and provide access to the Union Park Center. They're requesting it to be in phase 1 of both the needs-based and financial constraint. And the next project is the crossing. You can see there the dot of I-215. We normally break out these active transportation projects into the pathway and the crossing because sometimes just it's easier on funding requests and things like that. So this is a new overhead crossing of the East Jordan Canal Trail over I-215. It's tied to the previous project, and it's also requested in phase 1, financial constraint and needs-based phasing. State Route 111 or 8400 West at Magna will combine 2 existing projects in the RTP, making them both a shared use pathway and placing them in phase 1. This aligns with the Magna Active Transportation Plan. And then a current project on State Route 111 and Cordero Drive is a grade separated crossing in the RTP. This request is to modify the crossing to an at-grade crossing to coincide with the new signal being installed, move it into phase 1 and update the cost significantly cheaper to include it with the signalized crossing than a grade separated crossing. And it provides access to the new Cypress High School. Provo River Canal or the Welby-Jacobs Canal shared use path has been requested by Riverton and UDOT to be moved from phase 2 to phase 1. This project received funds from the Active Transportation Investment Fund as part of the Utah Trails Network. So this is a new funding that was approved, I believe, in May by the Transportation Commission, and we want to make sure it aligns, our plans align with the funding. Similar project here, the Bingham Creek Trail shared use path requested by Salt Lake County and UDOT to extend the western extents and realign the eastern extents of the project. And you can see that on the map here. The project also did receive the ATIF or the Active Transportation Investment Fund as part of the Utah Trails Network. New 1300 West Jordan River Parkway shared use path is requested by Bluffdale City and UDOT. The project coincides with the new pedestrian bridge crossing the railroad, but it's a separate project from that crossing. The project did receive funds, again, from the commission through the ATIF and part of the Utah Trails Network. All right, so that's level 1 projects. Again, they've been approved by Andrew, but I'll entertain any questions if anybody has any on those. If not, I'll jump into level 2. All right, level 2 projects, reminder, run through these, entertain any discussion by the Regional Growth Committee at the end of the project review, open it up for public comment, and then ask for a motion. So here we go. First project is a front runner crossing on 900 South. UTA has identified multiple grade separated crossings as part of the front runner forward study. In our amendment number 1, we had, I think, 5 or 6 of these crossings. We've worked with Salt Lake City and added this 900 South crossing in the city as part of that. So it's a crossing that, you know, for the crossing that makes front runner more reliable, allows for double tracking and the 15-minute headways, and then also makes it safer for pedestrians and vehicles crossing front runner. 2000 East from Atkins Avenue to 3300 South in Mill Creek is an operational project that'll include sidewalks, ADA ramps, storm drains, bus stops, and bike lanes. It's requested to move this project to the fiscally constrained phase 1 from phase 2. So it's currently in the plan as a phase 2 project. They want to move it up in phasing. The next 4 projects are partially or funded through House Bill 488 and the allocation of counties of the First Class Highway Projects Fund and are requested to be in phase 1 of the RTP. Additional funds for some of these projects are still being identified. So this first project, 4100 South Extension, is a new project extending west of State Route 111, providing improved connectivity and improvements at the intersection of State Route 111. 6400 West is a new collector roadway connecting 5400 South to 6200 South, and it is also in West Valley City's major street plan. Bingham Rim Road is currently in the RTP with the request to be modified to needs-based phasing and fiscally constrained phasing to phase 1. Approved funding will fund the furthest north section to Mountain View or across Mountain View, while new development in the south will build the southern sections of this project. And then the last project, it's a new operational project, adds turn lanes on Bangerter Parkway, so not to be confused with Bangerter Highway, between 150 East and 138 South, requested to be added to the plan. So it's an operational type project. So per the amendment process, we do technical considerations that are similar to how we review projects during the development of the regional transportation plan and tied directly to the Wasatch Choice Vision goals. So not going to cover these all in detail, but we've reviewed safety, vehicle hours of travel, connectivity, project readiness, and access to centers. The projects presented in this amendment will provide more and safer connectivity by increasing our active transportation networks, providing more connectivity across barriers like railroads and highways, and improve access to parks, Wasatch Choice centers, and industrial areas. With that, Mayor Dandoy, pending any final questions or discussion, open it up for public comment and entertain a motion for amendment number 2.
Okay, thank you, Jory. Okay, we'll open it up for any public comments. Anybody like to make a comment on this amendment? Anything online? You see anything? Okay, no comments online, no comments in the conference center. Okay, with that then, I'd like to make a motion. We recommend approval of level 2 board modifications for amendment 2 to the 2023-2050 RTP. Can I get a motion for that?
Moved. Wake up. So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Palmer, okay, Mayor, thank you. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any comments, questions before I ask for a vote? Hearing none, okay. Do I have, I've got the motion, okay? Yeah. Call for a vote. Yeah, I've been doing this way too long, okay? Okay. All those who approve the motion or the recommendation approval of level 2 board modification, say aye.
Aye.
I think I heard a majority. Perfect. Any of those who oppose this recommended approval, say nay. Hearing none, then this recommended approval is approved. Jory, thank you. Okay, well done.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Number 6 on the list, Wasatch Regional Council funding opportunities for local government. The Wasatch Regional Council has 9 programs to provide funding and technical assistance to our communities, totaling about $50 million per year. Administering these programs, one of the most critical things that Wasatch Regional Council does. The council staff is going to very briefly explain these programs so you and your city or county know of them and can apply for assistance. We'll turn the time now over to Ben and Megan. Looks like it's going to be Ben.
I'll initiate it, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Seems like good afternoon, but wonderful meeting. Key purposes of WFRC is to help our local governments accomplish their objectives. And as mentioned by the chair, one of the ways that we're able to do this is through funding programs that we have available that we either administer or assist with. And the purpose of today's presentation is that the application cycle for several of these are approaching. So we want to remind you about them, we want to tell you about them, and introduce you to the program leads. So there are 3 categories of programs. There's the Capital Transportation Improvements Program, there's Planning Assistance Program, and then there's other federal grants. And I'll talk about the Capital Transportation Improvements Programs, and then Meg will talk about the Planning Assistance Programs and the other federal grants, and then conclude with timeline and the contact information. So, perfect, thank you. So the 4 programs that are in the category of capital transportation improvements are the Surface Transportation Program, or STP. Annually, we have about 29 to 33 million available between both urban areas. STP projects can be used for any federal aid eligible facility. That's a collector or grader type of facility. Can be used for transit capital improvements and active transportation projects. The Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, or CMAQ program, we get between the 2 urban areas between 7 and 8 million. A Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program, or CMAQ project, must demonstrate air quality benefits. Similarly, we have the Carbon Reduction Program. This program must reduce transportation-related CO2 or carbon dioxide emissions. And then finally, we have the Transportation Alternative Program, or the TAP. We get between $2 and $3 million. These are pedestrian, recreational, non-motorized types of improvements, safe routes to school, improvements to sidewalks. So if there's any one of these programs or any of those that may have sparked a thought or an idea in your mind, we'd appreciate if you have any questions, contact us, let us help you out or identify or maybe coordinate or encourage application for any one of these programs. But let me turn it over to Meg. She'll wrap up with the other planning and other federal, and then walks through a timeline.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, so different from the programs that Ben talked about, I'm going to talk about some planning technical assistance programs. Thank you. So we have 2 planning technical assistance programs here at WFRC. The first of which is our Transportation and Land Use Connection Program. That's been around for a decade now. It funds more broad planning exercises, implementing the Wasatch Choice Vision and meeting your community goals. So things like a small area plan, especially if you don't have a station in your city, but you're still really interested in that kind of a walkable center of your community, or it might be zoning in your downtown as well. active transportation planning, right? So lots of things that are eligible under the TLC program. That's a partnership with UDOT, UTA, and Salt Lake County. So we administer that program in conjunction with our partners. Next is station area planning. So we talked about this a lot today. If you have stations in your communities where you have not begun station area planning, like those projects you saw, go ahead and apply for these funds. Those are available on a rolling basis, whereas the 2 million Transportation and Land Use Connection Program is an annual program that fits the same schedule as our short range programs that Ben talked about. Okay, next slide. We also have some other federal grant programs here at WFRC that we administer. They're all a little more niche. So we have our Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program. We administer this for essentially Weber County, excluding Ogden, as well as Tooele and Morgan. This funds capital projects more in the community amenities or emergency response spaces, things like utilities for your community. So think about CDBG if you're in those communities and get connected with us. There is a how to apply workshop in the fall that is mandatory. So if you want to apply to CDBG, you have to begin preparing in the fall and attend that workshop. The Community Impact Board program also funds capital infrastructure projects, and that's specifically in Morgan and Tooele counties. This is a grant and loan program. We have, so both CDBG and CIB, Christy Dahlberg is our point of contact, but me for now, because she's on leave. So reach out to us if you're interested in either of those programs. Finally, we have the Wasatch Front Economic Development District. This is a US EDA sanctioned.
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this, but Christy just had a baby. Like hours ago. So, yeah.
Couple days,
Yeah,
but
so
it
it's
probably
great.
feels like hours.
Okay. Less
Okay,
than
and then our
100 hours.
WFEDD, it functions kind of like a committee, just like the Regional Growth Committee here at Wasatch Front Regional Council, but it is a federally sanctioned EDD, and that program at WFRC can help connect you to EDA funding. So if you have ideas, especially increasing jobs, that's kind of what EDA is all about. Come to us and we might be able to help you get connected to some EDA funding through our EDD. We also do regional economic development planning and things like that here at Wasatch Front Regional Council. That's also ongoing. Okay, so next let's go over just the deadlines here. And these deadlines apply to those programs that Ben talked about and TLC. So that list up there on the screen, the rest of them have varied deadlines or are rolling. So coming up here after a council meeting next week, we're going to send out a programs packet, and that'll have a ton of information, lots more than we've shared with you today about each of these programs. The deadline, it will also include a deadline for letters of intent. Letters of intent, it's the same form for all of those programs. So you open that form and you'll get asked which programs you're interested in, same form. That's due at the end of September. That's kind of your way of expressing interest. We'll then review those letters of intent for eligibility, and we'll come back to you with an invitation to apply. The applications, those are different, but the applications are due in December. So I think end of September for letter of intent. If you submit a letter of intent to us and it goes to the wrong program, that's okay. We're going to get you to the right program. So if you're interested in a project and you're not sure how it fits, just go ahead and fill that form out. You can select all of the programs if you want, and we'll make sure it gets to the right one. And then after applications come into December, those review processes kind of diverge. Transportation and Land Use Connection Program makes awards in the spring, whereas the process is a little longer for the short range programs. Go next slide, thanks. Okay, here's a screenshot of what that packet's going to look like when it comes out next week. And then here are the contacts for all of these programs. We'll send this out, of course, and these will all be in the packet. But if you're not sure who to reach out to, same as the letter of intent, just reach out and we'll get you to the right place.
Letters of intent are easy to fill out. So don't be thinking that, oh, this is really hard. No, the first step especially, super easy.
Okay, any questions on these programs that Ben or I can answer? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank Meg. Great job. Okay. Any other business? Anything else we need to discuss? Andrew, Ted?
I'll pull up that slide, and we don't need to talk about it, but the slide of results, and you can see that. And I guess while I have the mic, I'll do a public service announcement. Did you know, if you come here, you can get a validation for your car, or you can get a transit return trip pass. Mayor?
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, Wasatch Regional Council, full council meeting is next Thursday. Okay, August 22nd. What's the time on that one? 1:30. So if you'll plan for that, and our next Regional Growth Committee is going to be October 10th of this year. And having said all that, do I have a motion then to adjourn?
May I just note also next week at our council meeting, we're starting the meeting with a Olympics discussion. So if you're interested, feel free to join. And I note that Ted now has the ideas on the screen. We can, even as you take your final motion to adjourn, Mayor, we can leave Rosie, let's leave the Zoom meeting open. And so people, if they're online, they can look through this as well. Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Okay. I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. See you next week.